Hi, Jerry.
Oh, I don't have, let's see here. I'm not hearing. I know. I must have put in the wrong numbers.
Morning.
Good morning.
everyone. Doug, are we recording?
We are.
Awesome. Sorry, I'm joining a little late. I had some technology snafus. Hey, Patrick. Hey, everybody. Very good to see you all. Let's give it a few more minutes. I think for the benefit of the new people in the room, we're going to do a very, very quick round of introductions, but we're not going to start just yet. You like my meditation bell? We're going to start the meeting with this little meditation. In honor of my husband, who is starting a meditation retreat tomorrow, I'm in the mood. All right. Is Betsy here? Betsy Carrier?
I am here.
I have a feeling this meeting is going to go a little longer than our usual hour. If you need to leave, that's totally fine. I'm just kind of preparing you. I could be wrong. We'll see how it goes. All right, let's begin. Welcome, village leaders and guests. We took a little break over the summer. I hope you used it well. I wish we had time to share summer stories. I bet you that would be really fun. That's the disadvantage of getting together in Zoom. We can't have like the chats that really make us happy. But we're gonna plunge right in. I'm going to just call on your names. If you're on the phone, I'll just say the last 4 digits. There's a couple of people joined by phone. Just say your name and the village you're affiliated with. I'm going to start with Jerry.
Hi, I'm Jerry Cooperman with Stonegate Village, and I want to take a minute to introduce Becca as well. Becca is our new executive administrator, and she'll say hi to you.
Congratulations. So let's go straight to Becca then.
We lucked out.
Awesome.
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet all of you. My name's Becca Hage. And like Jerry said, I started with Greater Stonegate Village on August 29th. So in a couple weeks now.
Fantastic. And Becca, there are a few people here who are staff and they will introduce themselves to you. I'm not presuming too much by suggesting you reach out to them anytime you need to for any kind of advice and support because they're awesome.
Sounds good.
Eddie.
Hi, everybody. Eddie Rivas, Potomac Community Village.
Emily.
Hi, I'm Emily Van Loon. I'm the treasurer of the Village of Tacoma Park.
Doug.
Hi, I'm Doug Gaddis. I'm executive director at Silver Spring Village.
Margaret.
You're muted.
Hello, Margaret Newman. I'm the executive director for Friendship Heights Neighbors Network.
Duran.
Hey, it's Doran Flowers here at Little Falls Village, and it's been since August 8th.
So Duran is the new executive director. Welcome, Duran. Same extension goes to you, some invitation as it had to Becca. Good to see you.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear. Which village?
Little Falls Village.
So Lisa Owens is now in the Congo. We all wish her the best. Brand new adventure, and we have wonderful Duran with us. Amy.
Hi, I'm Amy Ryder, president of the Burning Tree Village, unpaid staff. We don't have executive directors, and I'm envious of those villages that do.
Kate.
Hi, I'm Kate Smith. With Bradley Hills Village, and welcome, Becca, paid staff.
Abby.
Hi, I'm Abby Sims. I'm president of North Chevy Chase Connections. We're all volunteer.
Betsy.
I'm Betsy Carrier with Bradley Hills Village, and I'm also wearing a Commission on Aging hat today. Hi.
Linda.
Linda. Which Linda?
Weisman.
I'm Linda Weisman. I'm the treasurer of the Village of Kentlands and Lakelands, and we're all volunteer.
Elizabeth.
Elizabeth Hale. I'm part-time executive director, Bethesda Metro Area Village.
Jean.
I think there's two, but maybe not. I'm Jean Hockren, president of North Bethesda Village, also all volunteer.
Judy.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Judy Levy. I'm vice president of Burning Tree Village, and we're all volunteer.
And I see you joined us, so grandkids don't need you anymore?
Nope.
I don't know if you want to be happy or sad, but I'm happy to see you.
Thank you. I'm Ann Humphrey. I'm president of Little Falls Village, and we are thrilled to have Doran as our new executive director.
Linda Mini 5, I am assuming that is not your last name.
Nope. I'm Linda Smith, and I'm from the Greater Stonegate Village, and I'm the vice president.
Awesome. Jay.
I'm Jay Bedell, a board member of Burning Tree Village.
Fantastic. We have lots of people from Burning Tree today. I'm so happy. Sylvia. Sylvia Saunders, you are on mute, my dear.
Sylvia Saunders, Executive Director of East County Village Seniors.
Volunteer, I might add.
Yes, all volunteer.
All around awesomeness. Narda.
Hi, I'm Narda Ehrlich from Wingate and Maplewood Neighbors Helping Neighbors Village, an all volunteer village and intergenerational village, free membership for all. Glad to be here.
Thank you, Narda. Trish.
Trish Evans with the City of Rockville Village Facilitator.
Teresa.
Oh.
Teresa, you're on mute, my dear.
Oh, sorry. Hi, I'm Teresa Anderson. I'm the president of the King Farm Neighbors Village in Rockville, and we're all volunteer.
Thank you. Joe.
Hi, Joe Isaacs, president of Mill Creek Village, another all-volunteer body, and welcome, Becca.
I believe I have called on everyone with the exception of, Eddie. I've called on you, I did. So I would like to introduce our lovely, lovely speaker and wonderful collaborator all throughout COVID, Patrick Fleming. He's with the Office of Emergency Management and Homeland Security. Patrick is also a part of the age-friendly advisory group representing the Office of Emergency Management. We had worked extensively around food access. If you recall, I was heavily involved with that as well during the pandemic. And in the past, we had talked about the importance of emergency preparedness information for villages, and this is Emergency Preparedness Month. And we thought that we would do a two-pronged approach in talking to you guys about this. One is thinking strategically, and this is the forum today to think about what you see as happening in your communities, not just around COVID, but also other emergencies and your thoughts and ideas. We're also going to give Patrick a chance of sharing with you some information which you might find helpful. As you can imagine, emergency preparedness is something that everybody should have some kind of involvement with. And I think that you guys have proved yourself as pivotal key players when something happens in our communities. So I'm going to hand it off to Patrick. He's going to do some introduction. I don't know if you've prepared anything formal, but I do want to open this as a discussion for us to just think about what that means for us. We'll share some information about the end of September's event. And we'll have some Q&A around that. So take it away, Patrick.
Thanks, Pazit. Sorry, I'm
Yes.
just trying to pull up a website. As Pazit said, yes, my name is Patrick Fleming. I'm with the Office of Emergency Management and Homeland Security. One of the hats that I wear is outreach. So as Pazit said, September is National Preparedness Month. So we are embarking upon outreach activities. So actually, I don't know if I can share, because I think what might be best, Pazit, is to just kind of go over the PowerPoint and just like hit some highlights for folks to understand kind of what we're going to be talking about, and then that way can gather some feedback of what might need to be more specific or focused on a little bit more. Does that make sense?
Yeah, just we don't have much time, so just choose the key points that you think would be important for the people in the room too.
Okay, well then I won't show it, but in the PowerPoint, we kind of go through who we are within the Office of Emergency Management. A lot of people don't necessarily know what we do, who we are, and kind of how we work within county government. So quick explainer is that we are the backups to the first line folks. So, we're not the ones putting out fires. We're not the ones responding to 911 calls. We're not, folks administering vaccines. But when the people who are doing those things on a day-to-day basis, their normal scope of work and abilities are exhausted, that's where we come in and we help backfill them and make sure that they're able to continue to provide services to folks. So kind of talk about what happens in the county and then go through some events that happen, help people understand why they should be prepared. One of the big things that happens is a lot of folks, when you look at what people are in emergency situations, both man-made and natural, there's a lot of biases where the way our chemistry and our brains work and how we interpret information from the world. We sometimes we have complacency to not immediately react. So it's important for folks to prepare and plan how they're going to deal in certain situations, be it a snowstorm, that if you can have to shelter in your house, you need to have your plan and your kit in place so that you can shelter within your house for 3 days. It's kind of the average that we ask folks to do. Or if people are driving and they're stuck on the side of the road, what kit do they have in their vehicles? And then if there is an emergency situation, that there is an active shooter situation, or something occurs when they're out in their communities or at place of work, how they respond, and also overcoming those inherent biases of a lot of times what people think about is when they hear certain things or they see things that are happening, they're like, oh, it's not what this actual event is or what could be happening. It's like, oh, it's fireworks, or it's there's an earthquake, and they're like, oh, it's not really an earthquake, but it's just a car hit the building that I'm in. And so it's just remembering, immediately think of what could be happening and then react appropriately. And then finally going over kind of things that folks can keep in their house, their car, and if people are working at their place of work, that they may need in order to handle certain situations. And then also how to develop plans for how they're going to communicate with the people that they live with, their extended support network of family and friends during emergency situations, because power may be out, phone lines may be down. This is not so much a problem now that a lot of people are based off of the cellular network, but if you remember the old school phone network, where you might have the network might be loaded in a certain area, so you couldn't call locally, but you could call long distance. And so sometimes it's easier to have that person who lives 3, 4, 5 hours away that everybody knows to call, and that person can be the relay to say, I've talked to X and Y, and this is where you should meet them. So it's talking about how to do those things, and then also how to, in case, practice making those phone calls, practicing their plans. And then also, we all went through fire drills in our schools, but when we were in school, but when's the last time you practiced when leaving your house? I know that I am bad about that, even though I am a professional. So those are kind of the things that I'll be reviewing, and I'm happy to answer any questions, comments, whatever it is.
I also want to note that we're going to have a representative from Public Health Department, because as we've learned in the past couple years, the hard way, that emergencies can also have public health component to it. And so bringing some of that perspective as well and sharing some of the information. Some of it is not new to you, but perhaps to your members it is, in terms of how to think and prepare strategically. We're also going to think about ways that you as villages think about yourselves as an organization and how to serve your communities in collaboration with the Office of Emergency Management to serve your members better. So I think I want to just like put that kind of prism on this conversation so that we can then tap Patrick's expert mind on this particular topic.
Yeah, and outside of this, if folks have want me to come and talk to folks for your specific village or group, we're more than happy to do that, either myself or someone else from the office. And I've put in the chat a link to our website, which lists a myriad of resources in 7 different languages. So it hits all the major and a good amount of minor languages spoken in the county. There's ones for people with access and functional needs. There's books, there's resources for children. So it has a lot of information in there. And if anybody needs copies of those, please reach out to me and I can mail them to folks.
Thoughts, observations, things you would want to tell Office of Emergency Management about what you've observed during the COVID pandemic emergency and other situations that you may have witnessed. Eddie.
I have a question about the event on the 30th.
Yep.
Will there be limited attendance, or we have unlimited?
Unlimited.
We can invite village members.
No, I mean, that's the idea. This is for village members.
Okay, all right.
And even beyond, Patrick has been promoting this beyond. Our focus is older adults and the things that older adults need to think about when they consider emergency preparedness. And there will be some villages notes. I think, since it's not going to take up much of the time, people who are not part of a village are not going to be too frustrated. And in fact, they might be encouraged to join a village. If we're able to articulate effectively is like, how can your village support you during your emergencies? And so I'm actually welcoming your notes right now and things that you already do. I have a little slide that outlines some of this, but I don't want to forget things. So think about what you have done or what you would like your village to be able to do to its members, and we can list that as well. One such example is the storm buddies that a couple of you are managing. I'm sorry I interrupted you, Patrick.
No, that's okay. I was going to say I've gotten a couple of requests to do, because we're doing in-person events similar to this, and some folks have asked if we could do one virtually, or are we doing them virtually? And so I asked Fazit, because I got the impression that at least a couple of the people who have commented are older individuals that and so I was like, this might be a great opportunity to promote, you know, the villages and all the resources they provide, and then also, you know, it's a win-win for everybody. So we're going to open it up to more folks too.
Patrick, this is Joe Isaacs in Durwood, Mill Creek Village. I was wondering, does the county have a radio station or emergency radio? I mean, if we went to our transistor or battery powered radios, can we reach this information in the event of emergency?
So the county itself does not maintain a radio station, but we work, I would willing to bet that the local radio stations in the during an event would broadcast that information. We within the county have what's called Services-Montgomery, which can be phone calls, texts, or emails, and we encourage people to sign up for those. And they can have as little or as many texts, or I mean alerts as they want. So it can be for traffic conditions, school closings, National Weather Service things. So it can run the gambit. You can pick and choose. And again, it's an email, a phone call, or a text message. And you can choose which level, what types of things people want. And if people can call, if they are limited proficiency with the internet and doing things on a computer, they can call 311, and 311 can put in a request to our office, and then someone that I work with will call them and walk the person through it.
Actually, villages can also help people just sign up for Look Montgomery. I think it's a huge benefit. So I'm going to note that in the slides about what villages can help their members do. Jean, you wanted to say something, and then Duran.
Just another need of clarification for the meeting at the end of the month. I already sent out a notice to the people on our distribution list, and a couple of people wrote back and said, oh, this is great. I'm a little concerned about people hearing that villages can do all kinds of things for them when our village cannot, or we can do certain things that other villages cannot. And so I was kind of hoping that the event on the 30th would focus more on what people can do for themselves, and less about saying, well, you know, we can arrange for this, that, and you know, villages can do this, that, or the other thing for you, because they'll go, well, why isn't my village doing that? You know, that kind of thing.
Well, I think what we can say, because I think people need to know what their villages can and cannot do. So we can say different villages have different stages of development or different type of focus. These are kind of things you might be able to get your village to do if you want to take the initiative, if it doesn't do it so far. So we'll couch that in language that doesn't put any kind of value judgment. You say we're all different villages here, because I do think that people need to know what their villages are offering. Or maybe we can just say, talk to your village leaders about what you are doing, something like that.
Yeah, I just don't see the value. You know, I need to take a step back, I'm sure, from it, but I don't really see the value of promoting the fact that villages can solve their problems when some maybe can do that better than others. I mean, what's the benefit there?
It's more about getting the members to know that they can turn to their village as a viable source of support during emergency. It doesn't need to be listed. I mean, something as simple as buddying people up doesn't need to be too complex, but we can, I mean, I'm hearing what you're saying, Jean. I don't want to belabor the point. I will reconsider ways of saying things without creating false expectations.
Yeah, I would encourage you, thank you, Pazzi, to think about it, because I think it'll just lead to more disappointment and perhaps, I mean, certainly to say, you know, villages can help in some instances, but I think it's really on us as the village leaders and the village communicators to let folks know what we can do within our village. Rather than you sort of over-promising. That's all. Thank you.
I hear you. Well, good comment. Duran.
Yep, Doran Flowers from Little Falls Village here. Just to follow on that point, I know we have some great local officials who do even house visits, which our membership loves. But in terms of leveraging our abilities as a village, Patrick, are there some resources around train the trainer type things where we can have a part of our cadre of volunteers who can become a little more in tune with what our county responses are and who responds to them, so they can be more of an ambassador for interfacing with emergency preparedness officers?
Yeah, I think we can figure that out, because we don't necessarily have a formal process for a lot of train the trainer stuff, for even doing to do that. So, but we can figure that out. I think how to make that happen, both with us, within emergency management, fire rescue, and even police, possibly, depending on what exactly it might be. And then also working with our community emergency response teams, our CERT teams, that they do a lot of community engagement and response to events. They provide a lot more direct training about specific things beyond what we do in our office of the general preparedness, because they do a lot of until help arrives, stop the bleed, CPR type stuff, if that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, I think maybe a little less that and a more a cadre of volunteers who understand. I think what happens in our particular environment is that we leave these things to the professionals. But I think in terms of understanding what the professionals actually do, there's this place for volunteers to understand what the professionals do in general, so we can have them ready and available to assist our members to understand what that is and how they can interface with the local professionals.
Yeah,
I think
okay, I understand what you mean a little bit better. So yeah, we can definitely work with you, and then just educate that group specifically, like what we have and resources available from us, and get that setting up moving forward.
Great.
Yeah, Patrick is also going to introduce in the presentation opportunities for people to get involved through the existing volunteer corps. Some of them are highly trained and skilled, and so we will, if you have village members who are a part of that corps, you're already building those bridges with providers that are deeply engaged with emergency response on the ground level. Now, if you recall, one of the things that, especially in the early days of the pandemic, the biggest value you guys provided, and that was regardless of any kind of stage of development you were in, that was the information and communication. And so I would just encourage everyone to get with the Alert Montgomery, and to we will tell Patrick and whoever is involved when there's an emergency that we can immediately establish lines of communication so that you can share reliable information. And it goes both ways, because so much of what you've told us from your observation of what's happening on the ground level helped us direct resources and rethink the way we did things. But also when your community members weren't sure where to get reliable information, you were able to get list, okay, this is what the county and what the state is saying. So it wasn't about running amok with social media posts about some ridiculous do's and don'ts. And we had conversation. I want to remind you, there's some things that we shared in this forum about stuff that people had seen in social media that was really, it was important to counter rapidly to keep people safe. So ensuring that these lines of communication with trusted sources remains open, and that your members know to go to you when they're not sure about where to get the right information is critical. So we're going to emphasize the importance of getting information from trusted sources. Okay. Any other thoughts, questions? Okay. If you haven't seen the flyer yet, I'm happy to resend it. There are a couple of people here who are not traditionally on my email list. If you are not, I'm going to put my email in the chat. Simply send me an email and ask me to either join the email list, which I don't abuse. I sent things judiciously, or let me know if you just want to get some information as a follow-up to this meeting specifically. All right, Patrick, do you have any other things to share ahead of the meeting?
I don't think so. And if something comes up in the next few weeks, we can get it addressed.
Awesome.
So.
All right. Thank you. You are welcome to stay. We have a few more items to touch on, but
I actually am going to drop off. I have to go to another meeting.
It's okay. So. I really appreciate your time.
Yep.
See ya.
Right. Bye.
There are a couple of people who had joined us afterwards. I want to give them a chance to introduce themselves. I'm seeing Rosemary. And you're on mute if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Rose. I'm at Carter Rock Springs, and we're still in our developing stages for the village.
Welcome, Rose. I hope you got
probably just reconvene this fall.
Fantastic. I'm very happy to see you here.
Glad to be here.
And there's a Jennifer.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Jennifer Reish. I am with Chevy Chase at home and just in my first couple of days, so I don't have much to contribute, but I'm eager to learn and listen. So thank you.
What is your role with Chevy Chase at home?
I am the new volunteer and programs manager.
Nice. So
Yes, and-
welcome.
Thank you.
You should know that this is a meeting with a bunch of few new staff member. Elizabeth, Doug, Kate, I think maybe we can convene a meeting for staff to welcome them and let them know who is who, and so they know who to call. So maybe Doug will send another Zoom link inviting people for that so that they'll have a sense of who their counterparts are.
That'd be great. Thank you very much.
There's a person who joined by phone, 6858.
Hi, Pazita. It's Mike Landa, Villages of
Hi.
Kensington, where I'm co-president and volunteer coordinator.
Fantastic. I would say something about Carter Rock. When I came to the county in 2014, there was a very dynamic person who had done some work for Carter Rock, but once she left, the initiative did not continue. So I'm delighted that you guys are picking up where she had left, and I've heard only awesome things since then about what you've been able to do. So I'm really delighted to have you join us.
Thank you so much.
Okay. I'm going to be sharing my screen now. We're going to go through this PowerPoint presentation I had shared before. I don't know how many of you were able to open it. Betsy had said there are a couple of slides that didn't download well. So let me know if you had a problem with seeing any of the slides. We were using 2 different software products.
Pazit, before you do that, a quick
Yes.
question.
Yes.
Is this Zoom link that we're using today the new one, permanent one for these meetings?
Yes. I had a recurrent meeting and I failed to update with the new one Doug had sent me, and I'm so glad that at least Doug keeps me honest. Thank you, Doug.
But so if we put it into our calendars for this time slot, it's
Yep.
the one we're going to keep using, right, Doug?
Yep.
Barring having to change it for some reason, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I need to open my PowerPoint before I share so that I'll know what I'm sharing. Okay.
By the way, I just tried to sign on to Alert Montgomery. They don't give instructions for how the password should be. And I tried different things and it says I made an error in either the username or the password and there's no instructions, FYI. So unless I look, it might be
I was
me.
actually thinking of asking Patrick to spend a few minutes on the event on the 30th, just sharing his screen and showing how you can sign up online. It's difficult once you've signed up because they identify your IP address. And when I tried to do it from fresh, it was not possible. But maybe we can have like a little set of instruction.
That's what I think is there's nothing on the site to say you need to don't use these symbols. It has to be a certain number. So I tried a bunch of different things and none of them work.
That's really good input. I'm going to talk to him about instruction on the Alert Montgomery sign up. Simple and easy to follow. It's really critical. Yep. Good point. All right. Can I share my screen?
Mhm.
All right. Sharing my screen. Now, this always gives me a little, trips me up. All right. So some of these things you already know, so I'm not going to go through all of it. As I've said in the email, some of these slides are basic because we're going to share this with the Commission on Aging. There are currently 6, I think, or 7 very strong village leaders who are also Commission on Aging commissioners. And so they're bringing the voice of what villages are dealing with and what are the challenges and potential advocacy items to the commission. So that's a huge boon for all of you. And I want to thank each and every one of them. There are currently a few who are present in this meeting. Eddie, Betsy Carrier, Judy Levy used to be one. I think I don't want to miss anybody, so let me know who I've missed. But the idea for us is to share information with the commission so that when they get to the point they want to share advocacy items, what are the things they want to ask on your behalf or advocate for, that they feel they're well informed and are able to do things in an educated way. So the commission never does things offhandedly or haphazardly. They spend time studying the topic. They have lots of really good questions so that when they do decide to put their weight behind a topic, that they feel confident about the value of what they're advocating for, but also that what they're asking for would make sense. So that's why I'm sharing something that we're going to share with the Commission on Aging on Tuesday in the morning. If there's anyone here who would like to join that conversation, these are commission meetings are all public and open to anyone. So if somebody here feels like they want to hear what the commissioners are asking for, share your own perspective, or just be a part of the conversation, or just see what the commission business look like, you let me know and I'll share with you the Zoom link for that. Okay, enough chattering. Let me just okay, so this is the state of affairs, the way we are seeing it right now. I actually think a couple of villages are in development stages that I haven't counted yet. I'm kind of holding off on what I call in development, because sometimes I get a call from a community of one very enthusiastic member and they want to start a village, but until such time that they have a committee of committed people and they're going through the process of considering what the village is going to look like, they're not really developing anything. So I think I've just in the past week, I'm going to transition a couple of the villages from what I call the seed stage to a development. Most of the villages, as you know, if you've seen the county villages map, are in the down county area. That really is changing. The last 4 initiatives I've called me are from the mid county, so the Belpre, Aspen Hill community, and I'm very ecstatic about that. The size of membership is a little tricky, and some of the villages here will say that they don't really have anything that can describe as formal membership, because in their perspective, if you live in the neighborhood, you are a de facto member and there's no need to self-identify, sign up, or pay any fees. So that can be a little tricky. I just want to acknowledge that. But in terms of size of membership, when people self-identify and choose to be a part of the organization, the range is between 50 and 500, and I'm including members and volunteers. And we've said many times, and I'm repeating things for the benefit of the newer folks in this meeting, that volunteers are benefiting from being a part of the village almost as much as, if not more than, members receiving services, because the connection, the relationship, the opportunity to give back to the community is hugely beneficial to anyone who ever looked at what people are doing in the village movement. The size of catchment, the smallest one, the village smallest size in terms of geographic area, is a civic association, or, you know, thinking of neighborhoods like King Farm and Rockville. But there are some villages that are quite large and include several zip codes, such as Potomac, Silver Spring, and Olney, and Little Falls to some extent. I've counted up, someone asked me, and I always need to keep that in mind, but don't always write that down. 18 of the 30 villages charge fees, and you see the range is quite wide, and 12 do not. 12 villages have hired staff, and it ranges from a part-time 1 person to 2.5, I think. Some of the villages have larger staff. Since I cannot see you while I'm doing this presentation, Doug, could I impose upon you just to stopping me and like help me moderate if there's any comments or questions, and I don't want to ignore anybody. Feel free to raise your hand or put question in the chat while I do things. I hope this will be a conversation. This is information that most of you have seen. This is from 2019. We are currently, thanks to the incredible help of Trish and Elizabeth, are collecting impact for 2020 and 2021. This is the most recent data we've got collected. 15 villages helped me collect this information. It doesn't mean that when you need to multiply that by 2, because some of the villages that did not choose to participate have significantly lower volume of activity, but it gives you a sense of the scope and magnitude of what's happening in our village movement just in this county alone, which is pretty staggering. I mean, especially look at the number of volunteer hours, 32,000 volunteer hours. It's just mind blowing. Number of people who participated in event, especially, you know, this is the COVID year where people were really needing to connect and find ways of being a part of a community. And so you all have switched to Zoom so effectively that nobody actually wants to go back to the way things were. But that's a story for another day.
Pete, is this a good time or later for me to make a plug for villages that have not yet sent in their
Let's do this
fiscal year?
now. Go
Okay,
ahead.
their fiscal year 2020 it's actually, I'll go back and look up what the exact dates are, but if you haven't sent the updated information to me and Trisha and Pazit, please do so. We have, most of you did, but there's still a lot of villages that haven't. And even if you don't have all of the numbers for each of these rows, if you have numbers for as many of the rows as you can, send that to me. I'm going to put my contact info and then the dates it's supposed to cover in the chat.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I don't know what I would have done without you. There are a few people here keeping me honest. Elizabeth is another one. Okay, we were talking about emergency response in the beginning of the meeting. I just want to recognize that the villages that had the ability and the interest and the need were able to switch to COVID pretty effectively. The shared programming flourished during COVID. So much has happened. Just to put a plug right now for the WAVE website, up until recently, Silver Spring Village, with Doug's generous assistance, sustained a website where you all could post your events that you can share with other villages. WAVE is currently offering that so that we don't have to impose on Silver Springs Village time.
Actually, Pazit, we're still doing that. Wave
Really?
hasn't
Then you
been
should
able to-
talk to Mary Jo, because I think they have the capacity. One of the things that the newly minted website is able to do is just allow villages, if you are a member, to post your events directly. And
Yeah,
that,
they haven't been able to get that functionality going yet.
what? I thought you did.
Not unless it happened in the last 2 weeks.
Oh, okay. Ignore my last comment. We'll figure this out and we'll let you know when it's happening. So thank you, Doug. So some of the in-person activities have been reduced in some of the villages. Some villages have reported that actually it helped them increase their members saw new value in reaching out to the village volunteers and asking for help at home. We talked about reliable information conduit. I think that is critical. We talked about getting inputs from people in real time, from you all saying, people are freaking out because of ... So we were able to then respond effectively. You have participated in provision of PPEs, and that's another reason why we have to be in touch with the Office of Emergency Management and other county agencies, because when there is need to distribute resources, oftentimes the county has access to said resources. So by having this formal relationship between villages and county agencies, you can then serve as conduit, not just for information, but also for actual resources. Vaccine clinic rides, food deliveries, help with distributing rapid tests, and so much more. So as you can see, the value of being a part of a village had become much more pronounced in many of the villages. Although many of you are saying that it's very difficult to re-engage with in-person meeting, and that is one of our biggest challenges, and that goes beyond village life. We're seeing it in family life, in work life, in communities all around. Okay, so what have we done in the past year in terms of villages, investing in villages growth and sustainability? We had many conversations about where people are at and what they're feeling, seeing in their respective villages. Michael Feinstein and his colleague, spacing out on her name, and had offered you several sessions of board development. Rave and Suburban generously paid for a whole session on strategic planning and board development that was in person at Rockville Senior Center. That was so much fun to see people in person. But then boards had follow-ups if they chose to with one of these consultants. I've been talking to many of you about what's going on, trying to figure out next steps. And we sent a survey, and I will share some of the results of the survey at the high level and think about next steps. Betsy Carrier and I had interviewed 7 hub and spoke villages. There aren't any more. Some of the villages that V2V note are hub and spoke don't really perform that function. So we're gonna share the information that we have from the existing villages. And now we're gonna also talk about the Commission Aging and what input they can provide us. So this is not gonna be any surprise to you. These are we've had, how many villages? I'm serving 21 villages, and I want to acknowledge each and every one of you taking the time and responding to the survey, because even if you were not putting your name in the hat for becoming a part of a hub and spoke model, your perspectives are really appreciated. So 21 villages responded, and overwhelming majority of you consider succession of your leadership as your primary concern. That goes in line with all the time and effort we've invested in board development and consulting. I think that at some point, I don't know if we'll have time today, we can consider doing a little feedback session about what was the impact of things we've done so far and what are you seeing as moving to the next step. But equally as important are membership recruitment, volunteer recruitment, wanting to expand or keep yourself financially viable. And 7 people responded to other, but when I read the comments, I thought that they still fell under one of these. It was just expanding on some of the needs that people had seen there. I didn't see any additional unique aspect that wasn't captured under these 5 categories. Should I take a break? I'm seeing chats. No? Okay, I'll trust you, Doug, to stop me when you need to.
Yep.
Okay. So for those of you who are new to this, the question is, what's a hub and spoke? This is like a thing that gets tossed around. So this is, Betsy had created this. I don't know, Betsy, if you want to take this up right now.
Sure. I think just reflecting back quickly to some of the introductory slides that Bazish showed, I was very interested in learning more about the hub and spoke, because I think there must be some secret sauce in Montgomery County, since we have about 10% of the villages in the country. So I think we really are leaders nationally. And I also, because of some of the experiences we had in our village during COVID, one, how exquisitely we were able to share and be recipients from other villages of events that were going on, how we had some challenges recruiting positions such as treasurer, and how I scratched my head why we were paying for insurance, a very hefty amount when we were such a small village. So anyhow, we thought it was worthwhile learning about hub and spoke. And I was just on my bicycle this morning, and it made me, yes, that's a hub and a spoke, and that's how it works. And I think in terms of hub and spoke, it's just like villages. You've seen one, but basically there is a hub village that is the entity, the nonprofit organization, and they usually provide the back office services for villages, things like accounting, putting together a website. The hub has the board that directs the organization, and the hub usually does apply for the 501c3 and picks up the expense for things like insurance and then shares it with the spoke. So you've got to think about that as the middle holding things together. And then the hub and spokes we spoke to, there was a variety of arrangements, but usually the spokes, they're not separate entities, but they're more like clubs. They support the village on a daily basis, and they have committees that coordinate with the spoke. When you get down to finding out about the range of activities and how it might work for you, there's a variety of arrangements. Some of the spokes manage the volunteers, the recruitment of volunteers, the recruitment of members. Generally, fundraising is done at the hub level. So that's sort of an outline for what the arrangement can look like. But again, there can be a lot of variability. I don't know, Pazit, can you do the next slide? Some of the advantages of hub and spoke. This is what we got initially on some of the interviews. One, what we saw or what I heard in the communities that I spoke to, the hub and spoke arrangement can speed up new villages coming on. They usually mentor new villages. They often send people out to the new villages from the hub board. Again, it will eliminate certain things like getting the 501c3. There should be economies of scale. Usually the hub has the manpower, executive directors, part-time, finance people. Most of the spokes were largely volunteer organizations. In terms of fundraising, most of the hub and spokes that I spoke to really benefited from bringing together a larger membership, so they were more powerful in going to foundations. Many of the hub and spoke arrangements I talked to usually had about a mix of a third of their income from membership dues, a third from perhaps local government, and a third from foundations. But again, there was a lot of variability. Again, these arrangements usually allowed the spokes to really focus on the things that they were interested in on a day-to-day basis, and that was the operations of the village, getting volunteers out and having activities and engaging membership. I'll pass it back to you, Pazit, to go on to some of the details of the, what you found when you spoke to folks here.
Okay. So for those of you who, I think many of you have seen the survey, even if you haven't filled this out. And, it took us a while to just clean stuff up because some villages responded more than once. This is why it took a little while to cobble all this information up for you. But the next few slides just look at the benefit of a hub and spoke, the way villages viewed it. And there's top priority, low priority, no priority, and not applicable. If there's only 3, that means no one said it's not applicable. These are the villages that participated in the response. So a big, huge thank you to all of you for taking the time to think about this and respond. I really appreciate that. I don't need to say all their names, they're just here. Okay, so hub and spoke. People saw the reduced cost of insurance, staff, and phone as a top priority. So as Betty had alluded to, that is a significant draw for hub and spokes. The cost of things and the shared cost depends heavily on what villages, what hub and spokes choose to view as a shared resource versus something they want to keep themselves. So if, for example, villages want to keep staff, that really cuts into their ability to benefit from the reduced cost of things. But a lot of you saw that as a priority, whether or not you were currently charging fees. So note the number that only 4 villages did not see value and reduced cost of these expenditures. Reduce workload on boards, top priority 8, low priority 5. That is significantly less in terms of the perceived benefit of the hub and spoke. I think that raises a really good question in our mind in terms of when we do decide on the functions of the hub versus the spokes, What are the things that villages board can let go of so that they can feel less burdened? I mean, we've had that conversation with several of your villages boards, and I actually see a direct link between succession planning and reduced workload potentially when we have a hub and spoke, because people sometimes view a board as, especially if it's a working board, as daunting, intimidating, cumbersome, whatever you want to, what kind of adjective you want to attach to it. But if you are able to create an environment for your, what you want to call it, a board or a committee or whatever, the leadership group of the village, that is significantly less minutia oriented, the nitpicky things about, vendors and invoices and website updates and who does that and where is that receipt for this particular refreshments, blah, 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 then people might feel greater joy in being a part of a leadership group, and therefore easier to sustain that group and plan for succession. Okay, shared resources effectively, staff and communication as primary. People really, really see that as a value. Nobody said it's not applicable. I think that the very positive experience we've had around the shared events had demonstrated our ability to effectively share our resources in a way that makes sense to everybody. So I really appreciate your thoughts that most of you felt that this would be a huge boon for us. Gaining access to staff. So those of you who have staff or part-time staff maybe didn't consider that applicable. You see, that was the most NA of them, and I expected that. But 11 of you thought that this would be a good thing, that if you had access to staff through a hub and spoke, you could benefit from a hub and spoke model. Only 3 thought it was not a priority. Increased funding capabilities, huge support for that. I agree, this is huge. Many of the hub and spokes, as Betsy had alluded to, many of them had said that they perceive the spoke as a vehicle for significantly increased fundraising capabilities. The world of foundations and nonprofits really like shared resources, increased efficiencies, cost reduction measures, collaborations, and a lot of them enjoy supporting such organization. Not to mention that I think that as a body, you can then go to county and seek additional resources. Help form villages in diverse communities. Many of you thought it was not applicable, and I don't know if the question was phrased properly. So this is not about you starting a new village, but this is us as a county taking on using what is known as equity lens and ensuring that everybody in the county has access and a fair access to a potential village in their community. And so I will share my bias and say that I consider that a priority, not just because it's in my job description, and thank you for those who created that, but because I think it is, when you think of how to operate from a value-based perspective, I think it's a big deal. But I respect those who did not feel it was as applicable. I don't know if you want to say anything about that, but I will continue to the next slide.
Just know, Pazit, that there are those of us who are supportive and will do it even without our villages.
Eddie's my
and I do want to say that many of us are helping already in terms of mentoring. I mean, if that's what you were saying, I think you would have had a different response.
No, I'll tell you exactly what I think.
Everyone, nice to see some smiling faces. So Jim,
is somebody talking? But I think maybe they don't.
I muted.
Thank
I
you.
muted them.
So what I've noticed in working in the past 8 years with diverse communities is that sometimes there is interest in starting a village, but they don't have the capacities that you all have in your communities. And sometimes it's hard to see what's missing if you have it in your life, kind of take things for granted. So the capacities for leaders to get to find the time and meet, initial surge of financial resources, although I have this startup fund, experience and ability to do that is a huge hindrance. And so if we have an existing back office that reduces diverse communities' need to start from scratch, it would make it easier for them to start their own villages. So it's not just the mentorship, and I'm sure you do that, and I do that a lot, but I feel like mentorship only goes so far. Sometimes you need to offer a very concrete hand and say, you don't need to worry about all that. You know, start your nonprofit status, get your liability insurance, do your research, find your friend lawyers to comment on your bylaws. All of that gets removed from your table as the task to do, because that's been taken care of for you. So you can focus on the things that matter to your community, such as reaching out, organizing events, getting volunteers trained, and get them vetted so that they can provide the training, the services. So it's very concrete structure to remove barriers.
Busy.
Yeah.
This is me with a question. I don't recall whether you asked us in the survey about another aspect of this, but something I think would be important is to help villages in their outreach within their designated village to diverse communities and local populations, because that's clearly something that we all need some help with.
That's a really good point. I did not include that, but once we have, if there is a spoke with capacities with expertise on outreach, then you have easier access to your diverse communities, because you're doing things in a coordinated way. So for example, if we were doing an outreach to a particular ethnic communities, it could be the same content can then be used for the entire county, and then people can find their appropriate village that they can join. That's a very good point.
Right.
Yep.
Thanks.
Okay, so this question, I want to apologize. When I created the form, and I should have, you know how when you create a survey, you have somebody do a little test on it? I did not do that. And I forgot to allow for more than one answer. I want to appreciate everybody who found a workaround and just used the comment section to respond to say all of the above. So most of you, when I gave you the option, okay, what are the things you want to hold on to continue to provide or engage with, you all felt you want to keep those functions going. And so I think that raises an interesting question in our mind and say, okay, if villages want to keep some of these, then how are we going to accomplish the reduction in workload? So there's a tension there, which I think we need to touch on. I think that really is the heart of the conversation. How do we find that sweet balance between people doing things the way they would like to do them, keeping things as they have, while benefiting from collaboration and shared resources? And this is not an obvious answer. A lot of the things that we had attempted in the past demonstrated the importance of really becoming one entity, and as a result does require some changes in the way people do things. And so I think to us the biggest challenge would be to find that sweet spot so that villages feel like they're getting the necessary support to help them move ahead, but not taking away things they consider critical, mission critical to how they want to continue working. So that's the analysis. I kind of started saying these things. The biggest challenge is leadership succession. People really want to collaborate and they see value in it, but they want to continue doing things in the same way they've done so far. And then how do we do that? What are the things we do? And what we had a conversation over the weekend, and what Betsy had said is this, and I think you'll appreciate that. When you start a hub and spoke with just the hub, or maybe a hub in one village, and you set up a whole structure, and then any new initiative just joins whatever structure you've created, it is much easier because you kind of create a pattern, people follow it. There isn't a whole lot of needs for adjustment and adaptation. But we have well-established, mature villages who are able to do things in a way that they feel is most efficacious to their communities. And right now, if you want to join Hub and Spoke, that will, I think we can't sugarcoat this, require some adjustment and adaptation. And so that is a much more difficult task than just starting from scratch. And we just want to acknowledge that and say, for you, it would be a weighing of your pros and cons. What do I have to gain and what do I have to lose as a village as a result of this particular process?
So, one analogy that we might sort of carry forward, since we're talking about hub and spoke, maybe in Montgomery County, we're going to be building an electric bike. So.
Electric bike?
Yeah.
I like it. Next steps. So our next step is what we're doing right now. We're presenting this to you guys. Betsy and I will complete the National Hub and Spoke research so that you will have some text to relate to when you think about alternative models that we've observed in the nation. That should be ready soon. Betty had done her part. I'm doing mine right now. We are going to set up a follow-up meeting for people who say, okay, I've gotten all this stuff. This is really interesting enough for me to at least want to be a part of the conversation. We're not expecting anybody to raise their hand and say, okay, my village is in, because you don't really know what you're signing yourself up to yet. But we will have a meeting in early October with those villages that say, this is interesting enough for me to want to remain and affect the direction the conversation is going. And then we'll think about potential models. Michael Feinstein generously offered his time in terms of a consulting function. I will talk to him as well. He has some interesting ideas. Betsy Carrier suggested we talk to the Primary Care Coalition because they have some similar models with the community clinics in the community, which is really interesting. And then we'll have to decide the scope and create a budget for it. So this will take a little while. I know some of the villages are eager to jump on the bandwagon and don't like it that it's going to take too long. I appreciate that. I just want to emphasize that this is a big deal, and as a result, we need to give it all the thought we can and do things in a way that would reduce tensions and challenges. I don't expect it will be smooth transitional around, but I want to do this right if we do it. So I want to emphasize, this is not something that's going to happen 100%. This is something that we are exploring, and we'll see how far we go with this. So that's it for now. Stop sharing. All right. Reaction, thoughts. Oh, one other thing that some of you have asked me. When and if we set a hub and spoke, this does not mean that this organization is you're gonna have to join. No one has to do anything. You only join an organization or you make changes to the way you operate if it makes sense to you. There is no obligation whatsoever to do anything different. The whole idea behind offering a hub and spoke was to respond to the challenges that had been brought up in these meetings repeatedly, as well as some individual village meeting. So it's not that I woke up one day and felt really bored with my life and wanted to say, how can I shake things up a little here? No, this is not something that is an imperative. It's just an idea to help you all. And if you all see this as a non-helpful thing, then it's not necessarily going to happen. So,
Zita, I have a question.
Yes, Linda.
I don't know that it's been covered or thought about, but it's something that maybe should be. If you participate in a hub and spoke, and the hub is the 501c3.
Yep.
Then who's doing tax filings, and what do you do if you've got multi-state spokes?
So one of the benefits of a hub and spoke is that only the hub does tax filing, and nobody else needs to do that.
Okay.
At this point in time, we're only talking to villages in Montgomery County, and therefore there wouldn't be any multi-state
filing
need. Personally, I if there's enough villages, let's say in the wonderful future that we create, there is a hub and spoke entity and villages from outside the state want to join, I am confident that we can figure this out.
Okay, thank you.
Eddie.
Just food for thought.
Yep.
The idea of one entity being created or presuming the role of the hub, I'm sitting here thinking that can become an issue for some of the villages that have staff. And so part of my thinking is, why not consider the hub being a bringing the staff, so let's say, and again, I'm just using names for now, but bringing Doug and Elizabeth together to form the entity so that Silver Spring and Metro Bethesda can be part of the hub and spoke without losing the staff who are existing. Right. So I'm just throwing that out there as food for thought.
Yep, I think you are right. If the villages that you'd mentioned, or when a village with the staff wanted to do that. Currently, I don't think that we've gotten to the stage where we are thinking about who is going to staff the hub. Yeah. I personally would prefer that the people who are currently staffing villages will then use their expertise to then deliver whatever they've done for one village to all the villages. Because they've got the know-how, they've got the experience, the relationship, and frankly, some of them have already been doing some of that in kind, pro bono, as just a gesture of good relationship. And I just want to recognize that Little Falls and Friendship Heights attempted to do things in a formal way. And I think it had proved to be a little bumpy, but the intent, I think, is definitely there. Doran.
Hey, Little Falls Village here. As we're kind of proceeding toward the possibilities of exploring how this works, I know in previous conversations, there has been the idea that creating the hub could be open to existing villages to become the hub, or possibly there was another thought that there might be another third-party entity which took on some of these back office requirements that everybody would benefit from offloading. Is there any sort of traction in terms of a third-party option at all, or are you kind of seeing this as flowing through existing villages?
I think it's too premature to figure out what that entity is going to be. I've seen, so Betsy, you can also chime in. The organizations we spoke with, the Hub and Spoke organization nationwide, did not rely on an external third party for their hub and spoke structure. So it was one village taking on the function as a hub, providing and extending their expertise and knowledge to the additional villages. We, I think, in this county have nonprofit capacity to do that if we needed. So let's say, I'm just painting a picture that of potential. Let's say we do want to hub and spoke. Let's say none of the villages want to become that hub. Then we can then turn to the nonprofit community and seek out organizations with the necessary skills and know-how, thinking specifically about the Jewish Council for the Aging that is already doing similar projects with villages. I think most villages that are part of it are pleased with what they're seeing. To then become that entity. I will say this, I think that voicing out a lot of the concerns that I heard around autonomy and ability to affect decisions, the leadership, regardless of where this is actually going to sit, the leadership of this entity, the hub, will be comprised of the villages that are participating in the program. In other words, it's not as though an external entity comes in and start managing village life. It is that we're creating a structure where we have shared and collective responsibility for the management of the entire organization by the village leaders. So it's not an us versus them situation, it's an us situation. We're collectively running this show. So the concern around autonomy should probably be mitigated, if people really take this in. Abby.
Well, I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate here.
That's the job.
When we were talking about this on our board, who do you think is going to be running this hub? Us. Okay, so the same people who are doing all of this work for their individual villages are now going to be on this oversight board. And I'm just curious as to how people see it. As nothing would thrill me more than have less work, but I'm seeing this really in a way as more work.
Yep, I've heard that concern before, that it would be more work. If we set up an organization that brings more work and then less, then we've failed in our experiment. I will not support any initiative which would make things more cumbersome. The idea is to simplify, and I will give you an example. So let's use the example of board members engaging in busy work for their villages. So every single village board has a person that is dealing with the books. So it's not as though now North Chevy Chase leadership is switching their operation, is doing everything they've done for everybody else, but they're contributing, first of all, their staff. So you have to do less of that busy work. It's sort of you're offloading, as Doran said, to somebody who's going to do that for all the villages. So you have less of those minutia functions. And even if you say, let's talk about leadership, right? It's not as though you all now need to do the same thing that you've done for yourself and then for another entity, but you're sending one person to run one organization, to do it just once for everybody. So each village essentially gives up one person rather than 5. So it's not as though all of you are sending all your board members to lead the entire thing, but you're sharing the burden of leadership with all the other villages.
See, the villages will still work work independently, right?
Correct.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So I don't understand. Okay, I guess the hub is the only thing I guess that people must be having a problem with. Who's going to support the hub?
Yeah.
Who will be there to? But it's not a controlling thing, right?
Some people are concerned about that, but I don't, from all the conversations we've had with the hub and spokes, and Betsy and I decided to talk to more spoke to see their perspective, that has not been an issue.
I guess I'd also like to just emphasize, this is just the beginning of the conversation. So there's nobody who has made decisions on any of these issues. And I think, and I've just spoke with a few organizations across the country, but I think they were at a different level of development. Montgomery County has fairly mature villages. So the thought process of people on the call and other people who've been involved will really drive, if anything, evolves from this conversation.
I do want to clarify, this may be the beginning of this conversation, but it is a continuation of a conversation that we had 5 or 6 years ago, where a number of us spent hours and hours and hours working on something.
Yeah.
So, I don't want to be negative, but I do want to be realistic. I mean, we have tried this before. Maybe this will be a different group of people, a different approach, different support. But much has been discussed in this area prior to this.
Yeah, and I think, Abby, what's different about this time around, I think there are 2 things. Number one is, last time we attempted to reach a consensus. So everybody involved, we needed everybody to agree on the same thing in the same way. And there is absolutely no way in the world we will reach a consensus. And I think letting go of that expectation is going to help move the process forward, because we have, 30 villages that are in the county, and people have asked me, so what's the critical number of villages that you think would help make this a reality? I don't have a number. I would like to see 5 or 6 at least, but that means that you all are providing us great input about things that you consider as a priority. Realistically speaking, I don't know that all of you are gonna jump on the bandwagon. You might want to say either completely not interested, we're doing fine, very well, thank you so much. I would love to see this from the sidelines. Some are going to say, I want to have a wait and see approach. I want to see what it looks like before I commit myself in my village. So there might be like a multi-step thing here. Additionally, and that I think is the big difference. One of the insight we got from the previous fail attempt, and that is the courage to understand that we need to be talking about one nonprofit entity. That is going to be the big difference, because that one step changes the entire infrastructure we can build around the hub and spoke. Jerry.
I think another thing that's changed is that we're 5-6 years down the road, and most of us have been in leadership positions for those 5-6 years. And many of us, including me, are tired.
Yep.
And we say that leadership succession is one of our most important issues. So I think I am coming to it with a different frame of mind. That 5-6 years ago, I would have said no. But now I'm worried about the future of my village. I'm worried about getting new leadership. New leadership is not coming in, and I'm worried about the stress on my board, who are tired, frankly.
Yep.
So I see this as something that may help us. And it's just that we're at a different period of time, and hopefully this is a solution.
Yep. Eddie.
And I'll only speak for myself, but I will say that my guess is that we have to really remain objective and positive, especially if you want support from the commission. The commissioners, there's 5 or 6 of us who are in villages, and we carry the water for villages within the commission. But if there's a sense that there's no agreement, or there's a lot of squabbling or whatever, people are going to pull back and not be willing to go to the bat for villages, either on advocacy or on budgets. So it's something we have to think about seriously, and we can't put Pazita in a position of having to stick her neck out by herself. So we have to really come together to talk about this and understand that there will be some pain involved, but not start off on we've done it before and it didn't work, why is it going to work now? We've got to really get past that. And again, I don't mean to jump on anybody, but I'm just saying it because I know there are commissioners who will look at the resource allocation and be concerned about whether it's good use of money or not.
There's something else I wanted to say that I've said in several board meetings that I attended, and I really want to thank those who have given me the chance to talk to your boards about this before filling out the survey. When you think about why you started your village, what was the vision that led you to become invested in spending your time and energy and assets in all respects to make this a reality, and why are you still in it? I think I would venture and say that it is not for the sake of keeping the village going as it is right now. The way you've created the village is a tool to accomplish the vision of creating meaningful connections and relationships within your community, helping people age at home, for reforging and reweaving those social networks so that your community is stronger for everybody involved. So when you think about your mission, then you can say, okay, what are the ways I can continue to do that and not hold on to the way things have been done so far because you're used to that. And that, I mean, I am not underestimating the degree to which this would take courage and effort. But if you think about it in a way, okay, how am I gonna be most efficient in helping my vision come to life, not how am I going to keep things the way they are because of whatever reasons you want to outline. Then it might be easier to adapt to a new way of doing things. And I hear you, Abby. I'm really in the real world. I have no interest in doing things in the world of fantasies and imaginations, hopes and aspirations. I think that can be a place we can start with. You know, you need to have, like Eddie said, there's got to be optimism and some confidence that there's benefits in attempting this. But whatever we do is going to be rooted in reality. And so it's perfectly fine to say what you think, especially if you identify an obstacle that then once overcome is going to help us one step further toward this objective of ours. So the what about is important. So what about, current stuff? What about our websites? What about who's going to answer the phone? What about how do we communicate with our local communities? We don't want to let go of that. These kind of questions, and they will be answered because we have to give them answers. But just separate in your mind mission from function, and that might help ease the stress of how do you respond to this idea. Kate.
Yeah, I also feel like there's the pre-COVID conversation about this and a post-COVID conversation about this. I think we can keep that in the front of our mind. I know before COVID, the imagining of sharing a village event with sharing event with someone else just didn't seem possible. And it's something now that we rely on heavily, knowing what other villages are doing, and Doug setting up that, common place where events we can all join in takes place. It really frees up our events team to hold maybe a walking group that, so we pulled away from hosting all these different speakers, and now we can focus on the little things that maybe our members would benefit from. And on the same point, I never really understood why we were collecting this data until recently, watching all the data that you've gathered together in one place, how big it is. And we using that data for a greater good. I can see how we could get more fundraising. We could sort of showcase what we're doing when we all pull it together. So while the hub and spoke before COVID didn't make too much sense to me, I think now if we can keep thinking outside the box of where it would benefit the greater group, I think that would be helpful.
Thank you, Kate. It is 1:28, and I think we gave you a lot of food for thought. You have the PowerPoint at your disposal. Please let me know if you are having trouble downloading any of the slides. I will try to modify the format. As we've said, the following steps would be for us to finalize the national hub and spoke report, so you have something to have come reference for other things that are happening. And we will reconvene a meeting specifically. This will not be a part of our monthly village meeting. It would be an invitation for those of you who want to continue the conversation sometime early October. I will be sensitive to all kinds of holidays and other conflicts. Thank you for Elizabeth and Trish for helping with the collective impact. I do want to remind you all to continue to encourage whoever does the data collection, and you haven't done so yet, please send us your data so we can finalize it and add some flesh to it with your testimonies, your photos, your stories. Note that not everything is going to be included because we are limited by space, but we're going to try and highlight a little bit of everybody's good work in that report. I also, one last thing, I'm going to share a link in an email. Montgomery County Council channel did a little, it's not a PSA, it's a little story about volunteer drivers. We chose to highlight one because they were limited by time. So, thank you, Village of Tacoma Park, for sharing wonderful Sandy Egan. But the story is about everybody's volunteer driving, especially villages, but not all. Feel free to post it, to share it on your social media. It's a great for you to try to encourage additional volunteer driving in your communities. So I will share that as a follow-up in an email. Eddie, is your hand up for that? Something else?
Two things. One question, the PowerPoint, can we share that with our village boards?
Yeah, it's for public consumption.
And number two, just so all of you know, The state is in the process of developing an RFP for that money from 2 years ago that villages will have access to. It hasn't been developed, but they're in the process. I now have a connection to somebody higher than the staff person who left and never said anything. So I will keep you informed. Perhaps the timing will be such that we'll be able to compete for money for the hub. Who knows?
Wow, that'd be awesome.
That's it.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for a very, very rich discussion. I just want you to know that even if this doesn't go anywhere, the exercise was very worthwhile because it has helped us really highlight and pinpoint our mutual understandings and understand our challenges so that even if this doesn't work, we can figure other creative ways to support one another. So I appreciate you all deeply.
Bazid, I
It
would
was
just
very
like to thank,
informative, and thank you very much for
yeah, that's what I was going to say. Thank you, Bazid.
I love you all. You know that.
Love you
We
too.
love you.
Take care, everybody.
You're the
Bye.
best. Bye now.
Bye.
Aye.
Goodbye.